All right, let's start off with our first big story. Since 35-year-old medical doctor Orwell Oji jumped into the Lagos Lagoon on the 3rd Mainland Bridge, there have been many suicide attempts in Lagos State alone.
The case of 19-year-old Bangkok University student Verishima Onuka, who took his life, and Olisa Nwakobi, a bank manager who also took his life, are just a few of the reported cases, as many more in other states or rural areas go unreported.
Indeed. Now, just last week, what could have been a Black Friday was averted when men of the Lagos Police Command contended with 2 women who attempted suicide.
That's the first suicide victim, Madam Abigail Oguyinka, being helped into the office of the Lagos Police Boss. Minutes later, she walked behind the police boss as he was ready to address the press.
She lives at Alakuko but sells amala at Sango. She had jumped into the lagoon by a Buteru, but luckily for us, good Samaritans, the girl who is the house girl that followed her, had quickly rushed to some good Samaritans, the fishermen that are around that area, that Mama has jumped into the lagoon.
64-year-old Madam Abigail, whose husband has been battling stroke for 4 years and grapples with the repayment of a 150,000 naira loan, says she's frustrated with life.
I don't have a helper and I'm owing a microfinance bank. I took the loan twice. One 90,000, the other 60,000. It's almost 2 months now and I've not been able to pay.
The fishermen that rescued her threw more light on what transpired.
I heard people screaming on Carter Bridge and inquired what was going on. We were told someone dived into the lagoon. We took a boat to go rescue the person. After we rescued her, we took her to the station.
When we thought we've seen enough for a day, there was another call, and behold, a second case. The second victim was aggressive with newsmen. With 2 attempts in a day, the police boss issued a warning.
This just evolving, and that is to say that we also re-strategize in ensuring high visibility, especially on all our bridges in Lagos. We would seize this opportunity to appeal to members of the public that as we go about this enforcement, although there is already a law that people should not walk, that is trek on top of those bridges. We strictly enforce that, and we want members of the public to know that they cannot walk across the bridge. And of course, there will be no stopping, no waiting on those bridges henceforth.
This is the 3rd attempt in a week. While these 2 were lucky, the Orjis weren't so lucky as they lost their son, who plunged into the lagoon in apparent suicide. Ivy Kano, TVC News, Lagos.
It's a really troubling situation there. The 3rd time in a week that attempts are made on the 3rd Mainland Bridge. So an infrastructure that was meant to help ease traffic, ease life, situations is now becoming a tool for suicide. Our guest in the studio is a psychiatrist, Dr. Otefe Edebi. Good morning. It's good to have you on the show.
It's good to know.
What do you make of this? I mean, when you have elderly women, attempting suicide, and the numbers are rising on a daily basis in Nigeria, 800,000 globally. What is at the root of this? I mean, suicide doesn't happen overnight, does it?
No, it doesn't. Well, I would say that the phenomenon that we're seeing today, especially in the last 10 days, is not necessarily new. New in the fact is that there have been related cases in other nations from history where there is a suicide completed suicide, and then there's a report, and days after, you have increased cases of suicide. It's popularly called the weather effect.
The weather.
Yes, weather effect. It's also called suicide contagion. So a lot of people, and
even more so, there is the same spot that keeps
exactly
reoccurring over and over again.
Yes, that is exactly what happens in the weather effect, where people begin to do the same thing. So if the particular news that was publicized was about somebody who drank this thing and it was sensationalized, as in they talked a lot about it, then you have a lot of cases. This has happened in Japan.
Okay, but beyond what we have,
of course, let's
okay,
take our first break. Of course, Dr. Debbie will enlighten us more on this. Right, you're welcome back. If you're just joining us, it's TVC Breakfast, and our first big story this morning is, suicide attempts in Nigeria. They're really on the rise. Dr. Otefe Debbie is a psychiatrist and psychologist. He's our guest this morning. And before we went on that break, you were talking about the weed effect. Are you saying then that the more we hear about these reports, the tendency is, oh, okay, somebody has just, ended this problem by taking their own lives. I might as well just do it. It ends my problem too.
Exactly.
Is that what's going on?
Exactly. That seemed to be what is going on here. Because especially when the individual that committed suicide has a similar case with yours. So somebody sees on the news, on the media that, oh, this person committed suicide for these reasons. And it's why, because sometimes when we try to explain why people do what they do, we oversimplify it. We really don't know why the individual, particularly Dr. Orji in the first place, there have been a lot of speculations on why he did what he did, but sometimes we just want to simplify it. So somebody listens to that kind of news and has maybe struggling with one problem or the other, or may even actually have a mental illness, because you can also rule that out. There's also the presence of mental illness.
There's a report that about 64 million Nigerians are not, sometime last year we had a report.
That what?
64 million Nigerians have some mental disorder or not?
I think that is blowing it out of proportion.
Okay.
Yes, that's blowing it out, because the general population is about
170, 180.
Yes, and in every given population, you are looking at like 10 to 20%. So you really can have, if you do 20% of that number.
But if you go through the report, they explain to you what those mental illnesses could be. Some could be PMS, yes. Some could be because of depression.
Regardless of what.
So 64 million would be taking 20%. It out of proportion.
It's usually about, yes, 64 million obviously is taking it out of proportion.
Okay. Yeah. All right, let's bring you more facts. According to the World Health Organization, the WHO, suicide is now one of the 3 leading causes of death among those aged between 15 and 44, and the second leading cause of death in the 10 to 24 years of age. And the question you want to ask, how is it possible that a 10-year-old is already frustrated with life and they want to take their own lives? It's amazing. Doctor would allow you to respond to that as we go on.
Okay.
All right. The World Health Organization also says more than 800,000 people die each year from suicide, representing a global mortality rate of 16 people per 100,000, or 1 death in every 40 seconds. But even more disturbing is the revelation that an estimated 10 to 20 million people attempt suicide every year.
A 2012 statistics by the World Health Organization showed that out of Nigeria's population, 6.5% committed suicide, out of which 10.3% were male and 2.9% female. So what could prompt a man or woman to take his or her own life, or even consider doing it?
Okay, so the doctor should answer that now.
Okay. Well, when it comes to suicide, it's an established fact that the male-female ratio is that the males have a higher ratio of committing suicide. There's also the concept of deliberate self-harm, whereby the individual does not necessarily intend to have a fatal outcome. That means they injure themselves, they do something to themselves, but the intention is not necessarily to end their lives.
Maybe to draw attention?
Yes, it could be a cry for help.
A cry for help.
And usually in the case of suicide or even deliberate self-harm. Now, for deliberate self-harm in particular, you have more females that fall into that group.
Why is that?
It's just what statistics show. We can't clearly say why you have a greater percentage of people who deliberately harm themselves as against suicide when you have a greater population being male who actually commit suicide. You know, not just that they intend. The intention is to take their lives.
Is it something about women that still holds on to hope? Yes, I'm crying out for help. I'm not really ready to end my life, but I need somebody to listen to me. The emotional undertones.
It could be. We can only just project.
Yeah.
Women have I mean, fantastic emotional capacity. I mean, they are more expressive. So sometimes even the fact that you are express what you are struggling with helps you to go through what you are going through. But men are more, you know, they deal with their things inside. So sometimes that inability to actually come to a proper conclusion due to lack of, sometimes it could be the information available to them is not enough and they don't talk about it, so they don't get better information. So they just feel
Let's talk about the 10-year-old already committing suicide. Why would a child commit suicide?
Everything still boils down to, in most cases of suicide, you have high level of a feeling of hopelessness. You know,
even for a child?
Yes, even for a child. Now, even for a child, then also there's a concept called accidental death, whereby it may be that the child, it's not as if the child set out to commit suicide. It could be a cry for help. You know, a child is in a dysfunctional home, which is usually something you see with people that, you know, end up having challenges or committing suicide. There's a background of assault. It could be sexual assault, it could be whatever assault. The truth is this: to have the full reasons why people commit suicide, there has to be a lot of investigation. What is called psychological autopsy has to be done to actually understand why children, you know, commit
but from
suicide.
your own study, what would you say has been? Really?
Usually,
especially
there's
usually
a high cases of assaults. That's sexual assault, whatever form of assault. Then also there are cases of separation between parents. So usually when the child is in a home where the parents are struggling, or when I say struggling, in terms of relationship, sometimes that is the way the child just wants to end it.
Wow.
But that is very rare.
It's amazing, really. And now studies have shown that risk factors for suicide include mental disorder, such as depression, personality disorder, alcohol dependence, drug abuse or schizophrenia, social isolation, reactions to failure and disappointment, response to accumulated domestic violence, like what the doctor just mentioned now, unemployment, and some physical illnesses and poverty. Now,
according to WHO, really, that they've discovered that this suicide sometimes happen between the low income and the middle income earners when it comes to economic and poverty issue. And they do wonder.
But then again, there are well-to-do people who still commit suicide. They have all the money. Like they say, the rich also cry.
The rich also cry.
Yes, you have... Okay. All right.
Now, I was going to ask the doctor a question, because the PDP faction, one of the PDP factions, the McCarthy faction, came out and said, okay, no, we should blame this on what is happening in the economic of the situation of the country. Is that a contributing factor as we speak?
See, that's oversimplifying it. That's just it. It's oversimplifying it, because it could be a case of psychiatric illness. We just talked about the risk factors, you know. So to just come out and say that people are committing suicide because of the economic. Now, it's an established fact that sometimes when there's economic hardship, there's an increased rate of suicide. But there have also been, history has also shown that there have been times where there were increase in economic hardship and it did not necessarily increase suicide rates. So it doesn't follow. That's why I say it's just oversimplifying it.
Yeah,
It
but the
doesn't
Great
follow.
Depression in the US
Exactly.
of the 30s is a pointer to that fact too, that economic factors may be a major, major contributory factor. Now, however, in Nigeria, many blame the trend in suicide attempts on economic hardship. There you go. Many Nigerians are now facing it. Now, the economic situation in the country has left many people frustrated and depressed.
Nigeria's penal code sees attempted suicide as a criminal offense. The penal code, chapter 27, section 327 says, quote, any person who attempts to kill himself is guilty of a misdemeanor and is liable to imprisonment for 1 year, end quote.
Local and international data on fatal and non-fatal suicide rates, actual suicide cases and attempts in most African countries are relatively low compared with rates in Western industrialized countries. There you go. Yeah. Where, of course, they do much more, better when it comes to economic welfare, situation
and social welfare.
Yes, and social welfare. Yeah. You have all of those in place for them. All right, let's just take a quick break, and of course we'll return to this soonest. Of course, to remind our viewers on TVC Entertainment that you can continue with TVC Breakfast on TVC Nigeria, on DSTV 418, GoTV 45, and of course Free TV 701.
And Star Sad is this 270. Star Times also, it is 307. Stay with us.
You're welcome back. You're watching TVC Breakfast, and we're looking at the rising cases of suicide in Nigeria. It's becoming very, very alarming. And the fact that it's actually criminalized. There is a penal code, chapter 27, section 326. That talks about any person who procures another to kill himself, counsels another to kill himself, and thereby induces him to do so, or aids another in killing himself, is guilty of felony and is liable to imprisonment for life. That is You're welcome back. You're watching TVC Breakfast, and we're looking at the rising cases of suicide in Nigeria. It's becoming very, very alarming. And the fact that it's actually criminalized. There is a penal code, chapter 27, section 326. That talks about any person who procures another to kill himself, counsels another to kill himself, and thereby induces him to do so, or aids another in killing himself, is guilty of felony and is liable to imprisonment for life. That is
assisted suicide.
Now that's a totally different thing. Euthanasia, like you have in places like the Netherlands and all of that. Yeah. Dr. Otefe Debbie, it is criminalized. There is a punishment, a very serious one, for attempting to commit suicide. Are Nigerians even aware of this at all? Would it even serve as some kind of deterrent, or would they want to ensure that when they do attempt, they actually succeed?
They don't go to prison.
Yeah.
Afterwards.
I think what you just read out doesn't clearly state that the individual, but if someone assists or counsels.
No, there are two different sections.
Two different sections.
The section 327 says if you attempt suicide, you will go to prison for 1 year.
Okay.
If you assist the person in committing suicide, that's also another offense. So the person who was the assistant and the committee.
I think it's sensitive. If someone attempts to commit suicide, and then you jail him, he's going through a tough time. So you want to evaluate him. However, I would say, this is just me now, I would say that also adding that in the news that the person has been jailed may serve as some level of deterrence. Because today what we may be seeing today is some level of copycat suicides, where people just wanting to get attention. And if the news is being reported in such a way that after these persons were evaluated, now they'll face their jail term, it will send some level of message.
This same issue came up in Ghana just 2-3 weeks ago, and there was a report that came in from Ghana, and the psychiatrists are saying, no, please don't put them to jail. This person is sick. It's the same thing if you have diabetes and say, okay, because you are diabetic and you need insulin and all, and you go off it and something happens, you go to jail. That the person is sick. That it's not really fantastic to
like
make
I said,
them go to jail.
it's my own school of thought, and this is my take on this. You do an evaluation. You want to establish, does this person have a mental disorder? Because you need to establish that. If the person has a mental disorder, then you treat. But if the person doesn't have a mental disorder, and because you see, like we said, today we have an increase, like a rising case of suicide.
Okay, so because we don't have time, let's just put this one in. How do you help people who are prone to suicide? How do you even know if anybody is prone to it?
Well, it still remains one of the, it's suicide assessment and risk assessment to establish if someone will commit suicide still remains a big challenge anywhere in the world. However, the strongest predictor that somebody may commit suicide is a previous attempt. So if somebody has ever attempted in the past, then that individual has to be closely monitored.
Dr. Otefe Debbie, psychiatrist and psychologist, I wish we had enough time to even talk about this more, because don't we all come to that point when we feel very, very low, you know, at a personal level?
Yeah,
I wonder what role. Yes, I wonder what role music, things like music, you know, would play.
Therapy.
You know, just play some music.
All right.
Especially when you're in that Lagos traffic. All right. Stay with us. There's a lot more on TVC Breakfast.